Hello, everybody. I just want to thank Tina and the crew for allowing us to present VitalHub today. Joining me today is Brian Gothenberg, our CFO, and we'll take you through a short presentation. A little bit about us. We're healthcare IT software. We're primarily focused in two areas, one being what we'll call the patient flow and journey software-based sector, and that's what we'll focus on a fair bit today. The other area that we deal in is the community health and agency space, so addictions and research. So all of our customers are 100% government owned or funded based entities. So we deal in larger scale enterprise based healthcare organizations, typically government funded. So our predominant customer is either the government that would oversee healthcare organizations such as hospitals, community care, long-term agency space, or those entities themselves being community agencies, long-term care, and hospitals. I'm going to use the word trust a fair bit. Trust is the exact same acronym, the same name as a hospital is in Canada. That's how they describe groups of hospitals in the UK marketplace, which is a big part of what we do. We like to think that we're good capital allocators as well as good operations people. So we have a synergistic M&A based strategy where today we've completed 8 transactions and we have more to come, all within the healthcare IT software space. But we think we're pretty smart buyers in that we buy synergistic-based assets that can also lead to organic growth. So organic growth is a big part of what we're about, and recently we're definitely proving that we can do that with large contracts that we've introduced into the marketplace in a recent time. So we're targeted growth and organic growth. We're a SaaS-based company. Financials are very important to the company. So we talk numbers and we love talking numbers. We're in a strong financial position, EBITDA positive, cash flow generating based business, and our annual contract value continues to grow. So the company, as Tina said, we just released our financials yesterday. We're on a 20+ million revenue stream, between 20 and 22 million. If you annualize where we're coming from based off of our Q4 of last year going into 2021. Our recurring revenue is about 75% of that, and our contract value of our recurring has grown to about 14.8 million. So if you take all our recurring software only recurring based revenue contracts, we're pretty strict because we know a lot of people pretend to be recurring and they're not really, because we view recurring as strict software based. We're there with about 14.8 million. Our customers, I said, are across those agencies. We're SaaS based. We've got a pretty strong management team I'll take you through and board that do things. We have our own offshore development group, our own offshore development group in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So about 1/3 of our staff is based in Colombo, Sri Lanka, and an offshore R&D based group that we 100% own. So it's not contracted. It's our own corporation and entity, and they're all employees of us. And we're international. We strongly believe that in order to scale a healthcare IT software company, that if you're predominantly based in Canada, you can never scale. So we have a large operations in the US, a large operation in the UK, where we're seeing a predominant amount of our growth, Canada, Australia, and then we're doing work in the Mideast and Qatar, and we have some European presence in Latvia in the European marketplaces. Management team, myself and Brian, we explained. We gentleman who heads up our UK office, Mike Saunders, 30+ years of experience selling and running organizations within the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK. And that comes with our 2 recent acquisitions that we completed in Q3 of last year. Vijay Kumara heads up our development group. He's also the co-founder of our offshore development group in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Although he's Canadian, he had moved out to Colombo, Sri Lanka for numerous years and has moved back to Canada, but he heads up that development group. Robert Lazar heads up our professional services here, 28 years of experience implementing healthcare IT systems. Niels Topping has 20+ years of sales and marketing experience, and go back to the predecessor company that we founded called MedWorks. So we think we're pretty high leveraged on our management team. Our board is joined by myself. You may recognize the name by name of Francis Chen, co-founder and CEO of a company called Astra Technologies. They're strategic investors as well as involved with us. So both of them he has invested personally a significant amount of capital into the business, as well as he heads up our M&A committee. Astra was built on M&A, and Francis is a big believer in M&A as well. So He heads up our M&A committee to do that. Krishnar, brings 25 years of experience in public experience, board members, and growth within the TSX and the TSXV based market. He's a former audit chair of Canopy Growth. Roger Dent, Quinsam Capital, currently, but he's one of the former members of Yorkton Securities, and he's on the board of Acuity Ads and other based holdings that are running through the TSX. Barry Tissenbaum, for audit committee, he's currently the audit chair at Noranda and former partner at Ernst & Young. And Steve Garrington, who's our international representative, he's a former EVP of InterSystems, which is close to $1 billion software company, where he ran international operations and probably has more experience in healthcare IT internationally than anybody that's associated with the company. So we think we're surrounded by some pretty good people. So what do? We've accumulated 30 different products in 2 primary areas. We started off in the community mental health area with the products of 4 different companies, and we'll take you through those in a minute. And they got 20 different modules that can be sold independently or very often jointly. And then we have 2 areas in what we call the patient flow operational visibility space, where we've accumulated 30 different products approximately in those areas. 20 of those which we call provider-based, and 10 of those which we call patient journey space. So provider solutions would be used by the audience of the entity themselves, the hospital, the trust, the community agency, where they're used by the employees, and they're used every day to monitor and to help them through patient navigation, to give them analytics and tools to assist in effective movement of those patients. And patient journey solutions are in the hands of the consumer, which would be the patient, which to help them through their patient journey and navigate them through more effectively. A definitely growth area. COVID has really centered that around there. But if you can imagine, moving patients through hospitals is a big issue. Capacity is a big issue, and efficiencies are big issues. And mobile-based technology and cloud-based computing has helped facilitate those. So we've accumulated about 30 different products that are selling in those areas for growth-based sectors. So how did we get to there? So in 2017, 16 we took over VitalHub, and then in 17 we immediately moved it into a public shell. And since then have been taking acquisitions and raising capital and doing acquisitions since there. So we bought 4 companies through 17 and 18 with the primary key product of a product called Treat, which is in the HiNext platform. And then we've been actively taking features of what B Sharp and Clarity and Roxy, those acquisitions, and merging it into this super platform, which is really set up to be the leading player in the community mental health agency space within the Canadian marketplace. So HiNext Treat is positioned ourselves to do that, and it's been a big focus of some of our growth. A big leverage point of doing that is we closed a large transaction with the province of Nova Scotia in early 19, end of 18, where Treat is being revamped to become a provincial solution for the Department of Nova Scotia for their whole Department of Community Services. We expect that deal to ramp up to $2.5 million versus recurring revenue on an annual basis. We're only recognizing about $400,000 or $500,000 of that particular base. So we still got a long way to go of about close to a couple million of recurring revenue on full rollout of that solution on a user-based need in Nova Scotia. It's also given us the development features to build that Treat product. We then moved into the patient flow and visibility space, which is a space that we love, through 4 acquisitions. A company called Oak Group in Q1 of 2019. It's a clinical-based assessment product where it assesses patients for being appropriate in a care setting. So it's used by hospitals to determine if patients need to be in a hospital or not in a hospital, and helps them move them more effectively by using criteria to establish it. Oculus is a Canadian company. Oak Group was actually our first acquisition outside of Canada. It's based in the UK marketplace with all of its implementations in the UK so far. Oculus is a Canadian-based company which gives operational visibility boards to help hospitals determine their capacity levels, where beds are available, and how to move patients through those beds more effectively. So if you look at hospitals, you see those big screens in the emergency rooms and on the floors, and in particular along the nursing desks and so forth. Those would be driven by what we call Oculus boards, and Oculus is pretty predominant in the Ontario marketplace with that solution. And then in Q3 and Q4 of 2020, we made 2 acquisitions in the UK, headlined in a company called In Touch with Health, which is that first area which is called Journey software. So all their solutions are focused on use by patients to navigate them through. So, hey, you're coming into the hospital, we'll start communicating you on your phone while you're at home. We're going to navigate you into the hospital for a test. We're going to do pre-assessments prior to you coming through for elective surgeries. We're going to take you through to your rooms. We're going to give you an eye receptionist prior to coming through to a hospital. So all those different tools that you typically might use when you're going to an airport where you're booked for a flight was what would be used by InTouch. And with COVID, we've seen really big growth of that particular base in the UK marketplace with some pretty nice deals, because you can imagine what COVID has done to start communicating with patients inside a particular from home versus going into a hospital-based setting. And finally, transforming systems, which is similar to the Oculus system, except that it's more what we call regionally based. So although we will take feeds from hospitals, we'll also take feeds from community care and other agencies to give government officials on how a region is performing within their area from a patient flow perspective. So what is the overall capacity? What's the backlog of ambulances? How much PPE do we have within a particular region? What's our elective surgery background? Giving all those indicators to government workers that control a region of hospitals or region of groups to do that. And we've also seen predominant growth of that particular areas. Both InTouch and Transforming we're bringing into the Canadian marketplace, and we're seeing some pretty good reception starting to take place there as well. Next slide. And again, in the community mental health space, the High Neck Treat product is our go-to product. We've spent the last 2 years re-architecting and redoing that so it becomes a comprehensive EHR tool. To do that, we've seen some good significant organic growth opportunities, and it represents about 1/3 of our revenue in the company at this stage. So we're seeing some good growth in this particular product set as well. Our organic growth is primarily focused on our patient flow operational visibility space. We've had a 20% organic growth in ARR since June 2020. As we said, we're above 14.8 million in revenue. Primarily, it's been driven a lot by the recent growth within our operational visibility space, and we're dealing in a very large marketplace for it. Some of our solutions on the patient flow, patient journey systems are things like Predict, which is emergency wait times that are used by people before they go into emergency wait room. Operations-based solutions were Bed Ops and StayTrack, where we optimize bed management in a hospital. MCAP, which is that clinical-based assessment-based tool. And then our elective and resilience and action and COVID-19 solutions, which are used by our transforming-based systems, which is that regional-based dashboards-based products. And more of the journey-based offers Synopsis IQ, which is that pre-assessment product that does pre-assessments before you come into a hospital setting. Synopsis at Home, which allows you to do those assessments at home before you come into it. We do virtual clinics, eye receptions, and things like that allow you before you get into a hospital setting. We view our marketplace and our patient flow market as it's about over a $2 billion marketplace. And we get to that by determining how many beds are in those particular areas. So if someone had all of our operational visibility solutions, it'd be about a $700 per bed per year base cost. We're in about 50,000 beds right now that would do that. So that would produce a $2 billion marketplace with 3 million beds. We still have 50,000 beds. If we just upsold our existing 50,000 beds with our core solutions, it represents 20 million of recurring revenue just through our install base. So as you can appreciate, we're looking to cross-pollinate our install base as effectively as we can. Our M&A strategy. So that's the M&A is the second part of our business, and we think we've been pretty good at it. So we're looking to buy strategic assets that are cohesive together and forming, so we get a cohesive base of solutions. A big part of our M&A strategy is R&D spend. So although we're trying to optimize on organic growth, we're trying to also do the reverse. We're trying to look for cost reductions where applicable. So our offshore development group is 60 people in Colombo, Sri Lanka. So when we take over acquisitions, we look to optimize our R&D as effectively as offshore. We're going to consolidate G&A. We're always looking to cross-sell products, optimize sales and marketing from a 1%, from a national perspective or from a global perspective. And we're looking to sell organically as much as we can. We have about 400 companies that are on our radar screen. We're sitting on multiple NDAs right now, and we've been very active in the marketplace. We're always looking to reduce costs by 20%. So far, acquisitions have been between 1 and 12 million in revenue in terms of what we're focusing on. We've used a combination of cash and stock, but a lot more cash lately than stock. And we do 20, 30, we're looking for a company that's producing 20 to 30% EBITDA. We're just approaching that 20% EBITDA, adjusted EBITDA based level right now in terms of what we do. We've been purchasing companies 1 and 2.5 times revenue. 3 times recurring is the highest that we paid, slightly over 3 times recurring. We're seeing those prices coming up somewhat, but we're still pretty good shoppers, we believe, in terms of what we do. But that's typically what we've done so far. We're always looking for recurring revenue. We won't touch anything that doesn't have recurring revenue. It either needs to be break even or profitable, or we're going to get it there very quickly. They tend to be owner-operated businesses that work within a small geography, and we look for a significant customer base with minimal retention, with the ability to expand that across geographical borders, and always looking to upsell into those environments to do that. I'll turn it over to Brian on the financials.
We look at, as Dan said, we consider ourselves both an M&A and a company that can grow organically. And that's how we measure organic revenues each quarter. And how we define organic revenues are those revenues over and above what we've purchased. So if we purchase a company which has recurring revenues of $1 million and we sell 1.5 in the quarter, we'll show 500,000 as organic and $1 million as purchased. So we've historically shown that we've been able to generate revenues both organically and through acquisitions, and that both numbers we believe will continue to grow as the business grows. The organic revenue as a percentage of overall revenue will probably decrease as we make more acquisitions, but in dollar terms it should continue to increase. Another big key metric for us is recurring revenues. We want to ultimately get to a point where we're at 75 to 85% recurring revenues. We're pretty close there. The last 2 quarters have been extremely strong, and for us that's a key metric. It de-risks the business significantly as we get more and more recurring revenues. Our historical financial performance, we like to look at adjusted EBITDA. And why do we look at that? Because there are two big numbers that flow through our income statement. One is our people cost, and the other one is our amortization. So because through M&A we've acquired a number of companies, we end up grossing up our intangible assets and then amortizing them over anything from 5 to 12 years. So there's a big amortization, which is a non-cash item which flows through the income statement. So we'll be EBITDA and adjusted EBITDA positive way before we're profitable, but from a cash flow perspective, we're generating cash from operations. So we've generated cash from operations for the last 9 quarters. Our last quarter, Q4, we were at 14%. We want to get that. Ultimately, our target is to get anything between 20 and 40% in adjusted EBITDA. ACV for us, a huge metric. We, as I said, to de-risk the business significantly, we've grown our ACV to 14.8 million, both through acquisition and through organic growth. The end of Q4, we added about $1.3 million in organic growth, and I'll show you the next slide. It was 1.283 in organic growth. And for the year 2020, we went from 7.4 to 14.8 million, so 100% increase in ACV, of which 25% of that was organic and 75% of that was purchased. Our cap table. We currently have 36.1 million shares outstanding, 2.2 million options, which can bring in another 4.2 million, and 1.3 million warrants, which could bring in another 4.5 million. At the time this was done, we were trading at 311. I think we're a little bit south of that at the moment. We had a market cap of 112 million with $27 million of cash on hand. We have no debt. So if you look at that, we're trading, as Dan said, we're going into this year at about $22 million. We're trading at under 4 times revenue, which we think is pretty modest for a software company with high margins and a high amount of recurring revenue and generating cash from operations. Financings, we did 2 financings last year. We had a board deal which closed in March of 2020, at $15.3 million at $1.80. And then we did a second bought deal at $17 million in November, which was done at $2.90. Both deals were primary institutions. The first one, I think, was 100% institution. The second one was about 75% institutions. We've got, I think, our biggest shareholder is Burgundy Capital, who came in the first round. Just some comparables. And you can see, the average Canadian companies are trading at about 4.7 times revenue. We're about 4 times. But we think if you compare us to a lot of them, we're pure SaaS, we're high margin, and we're generating cash from operations. The US companies are averaging about 16 times revenue. So we think there's a fair amount of runway for the stock and for the company to go. We're covered by 5 analysts at present, and all currently have buy ratings with target prices between $4 and $5. Dan talked about the Nova Scotia deal. This is, I think, proof of our ability to grow organically. This is a 10-year deal which can bring us close to $2.5 million of recurring revenues as we go forward. At present, we're only recognizing about $400,000 of recurring revenues. This should grow as the software is implemented and the users start using the system more, which we've only just started. The last couple of years, we've been doing primarily development, as Dad said, on our Treat platform, and it's now starting to roll out. So we think that within the next 2 years, we could get up to another $2.5 million of recurring revenues from this contract. Our offshore development team, we have a 44-member, it's actually close to 50 now, member offshore team in Sri Lanka, which is our wholly owned subsidiary. It was started by Vijay Kumara, one of our principals. His parents are from Sri Lanka. He went down there for a number of years and built up this team, and then it's come back to Canada. It's a pretty strong asset for us, and we really like it. We were able to get great synergies and great cost savings moving development where appropriate offshore.
Yeah, so just to sum it up, we're in a really nice space with digital health, and the patient flow stuff is something that's beginning pretty predominant there. We got history of acquisitions, of 8 acquisitions that we think we've done pretty smart. Strong annual contract bill recurring revenue stream that is revenue of close to 70% of revenue. Seasoned management team, and a low cost R&D development hub that's there.
Yes, thanks. So I think we have a couple minutes for questions, and congrats on the successful acquisitions. Obviously, it seems like every other week you guys are putting out some news on a new contract or licensing deal in the UK. So that's fantastic. I'm curious to know how the sales cycle has changed over the last year or so, and do you expect this momentum to keep going in a COVID recovered environment?
It's all money goes and flows and ebbs in government, right? And there's money being floating, especially in the UK marketplace for solutions, right? So some of these solutions have been on the radar screens for these trusts for years, and they're popping the opportunity to go get them. So we're seeing that. We saw it start in Q3 where we added about $500,000 of recurring, and Q4 was about 1.3, and we're seeing that trend going through into Q1 as well. So we do think COVID has ignited something in healthcare. We think a lot of our solutions are in some of the sweet spots, and we got market leadership status in some of those geographies to continue to grow. So there's still a fair amount of room to grow here.
It seems like you're working on upselling as well. I know you've announced some proof of concepts with some contracts where you're already contracted. Can you talk about the length of those proof of concept timelines and how much you think you can upsell some of these partners?
Yeah, as I mentioned, one of the slides, when you quantify our upsell opportunities, put a $20 million recurring upsell opportunity within our base. So, and we're constantly through acquisitions, that number should increase by us getting more software. So we got more M&A on the horizon here, which should increase that. So it's constant. We do expect a big chunk of our business to come through upselling our base to do that. But it's there. It takes, sometimes it could take a year, it could take months for pilots to do that. We are finally starting to bring some of those UK high profile innovative solutions into the Canadian marketplace, and we're expecting to announce deals and in the imminent future that we're actually starting to execute in the Canadian marketplace with it as well. So there's opportunity for sure.
Okay, great. I think you answered most of the questions from the audience already, but do you have a specific target in mind in terms of the number of companies that you expect to acquire this year?
2 to 4 type of thing. To do it, we're actively in the works. Sometimes these things happen and sometimes they don't. We're very careful not to make mistakes. And we got a particular sweet spot to do that. So we do focus on M&A. It's constantly going. We are sitting on 27 million of cash, and we're not burning any cash from operations. We're generating cash. So that 27 million is earmarked for acquisitions, and we do expect it, if we do smart capital allocation or smart buyers, that it should be accreted pretty quick. So we continue to.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for the presentation. I know that you guys have obviously made some leaps and bounds on the M&A side, but organic growth is still a focus for you guys, and you can see that in some of the recent announcements and the financials. So congratulations on that, and I think it's definitely a company to be worth following.